If you are looking for a plant that is easy to grow, and one that will give you fruit within the first few years of propagation, then the granadilla could be the fruit for you. In this video, we are going to show you the steps to follow so you can grow your own granadilla vines. Here at Agriculture Academy, we are passionate about sharing our expert knowledge with you. On our channel, you will find videos on plant propagation, tips for starting side hustles, animal husbandry and everything in between. Today we are going to look at the aspects of granadilla propagation. We are going to tackle the ins and outs of planting, fertilizing, trellising, harvesting and general granadilla care in a future video. Stick around until the end of the video for your own copy of our ebook on granadilla propagation. With that in mind, let's get started. While you can grow granadillas from seed, it is generally easier and quicker to grow them from cuttings. You will therefore need a mature vine from which you can take some stem cuttings. Make sure you also have secateurs or sharp scissors to do so. You will also need some cutting trays with large cells or individual pots. We filled our trays with a moistened fine coir. You can also use peat moss or good quality, all-purpose potting soil. A great thing about granadilla cuttings is that they readily grow roots, and so aren't very fussy about the soil in which they are planted. Just make sure whatever you use has a good balance of aeration and water retention. Here are a few tips if you are wondering how to take the best cutting from your vine. Firstly, make sure your cutting has at least 2 nodes. A node is a region of active, meristematic growth from where the cutting can grow and develop further. You need 2 nodes because roots will develop from the lower node, and additional stems from the upper node. The exception to this rule is if you take a terminal cutting. Terminal cuttings are taken from the very end of the stem. These cuttings only need 1 lower node for root growth, because the terminal tips also contain meristems that will allow the cutting to continue to grow. A second tip is to only take cuttings from mature, healthy mother plants. Remember that any disease or ailment that afflicts the mother plant will most likely be passed on to the daughter plants. For optimum results and healthy young plants, make sure your mother plant does not show any disease symptoms. Thirdly, you may want to cut larger leaves because a large surface area can lead to excess transpiration, and as a result, water loss. So, you can halve the size of larger leaves to help the cuttings remain turgid. You should also remove any flowers and tendrils so the cutting can invest all its energy and resources into root development. You will need to plant your cuttings in the trays or pots as soon as possible after you have cut them. The longer they remain unplanted, the more likely they will wilt and undergo stress, which is disastrous for root formation and subsequent survival. Make sure your trays are filled with the medium of your choice. Gently pack the filling down. It needs to be compact enough to support the cutting, but aerated enough to allow for adequate root growth. Granadilla cuttings are examples of softer, semi-hardwood growth. Compared to other fruit, these cuttings root readily. It is therefore not essential to use a rooting hormone. However, the use of these hormones can encourage faster, even root growth. If you do choose to use one, select an option that has a lower auxin concentration. Auxins are plant growth regulators that encourage the development of root cells, and high concentrations can damage softwood cuttings. You can also gently score the bottoms of the cuttings with your fingernail to create a larger surface area for root growth. One of the most important things you need to consider, especially if you have taken numerous cuttings, is to plant them in the correct orientation. This can be confusing for vines because they do not always grow upright. So, make sure you always plant the basal part of the cutting into the soil and not the terminal end. Roots will not grow from the latter. Because your cuttings do not have roots of their own yet, they cannot absorb sufficient water from the growing medium. It is therefore essential you keep your cuttings in a humid environment to prevent dehydration. This can be achieved through the use of sprays, mist beds or propagation chambers. After a couple of weeks, you can gently tug on your cuttings. If you feel resistance, it means roots have started to grow and you can replant them into larger containers. From here, stems will grow from the upper nodes and you can stake your vines. In another video we will discuss the aspects of caring for these young plants and how you can profit from granadilla production. Remember to check out the description for your copy of our ebook, and we will see you in the next video.